So we have a very shallow chamber. The IOP is on the low side, so that means there's a chance to get the chamber deep enough with OVD injection and not have to do a pars plana vitrectomy. We'll figure that out in a minute. And we have a pupil that doesn't dilate, some posterior synechiae, some probable IFIS. So here goes my side port. And now our primary incision. And the other eye had a very lax zonule, so there's a very good chance that we'll have that same situation here. A little intraocular lidocaine. So far it's topical, but we may convert that to a block. So once I get the pupil big, I want to stain. So I'm going to put in actually some Provisc moderate chamber elevation, or deepening I should say. And now let's do the synechial lysis. Now here's a little trick for you. Once you break synechiae, the pupil might get larger. And so if I have to do, and I think I'm going to in a minute here, a pars plana vitrectomy, I might just put some more dilating drops on this eye, run a little adrenaline in, and see what happens to that pupil before I have to stretch it. So we'll set up now and we'll do the pars plana vitrectomy here in a moment. I'm going to put a little more OVD in the eye. Yeah. Okay. So it's a marginal anterior chamber depth, and I'm going to be more comfortable with a deeper chamber here in this eye. So we'll move on and do a pars plana vitrectomy. So I'm going to make a conjunctival incision, and we'll go back 3.5 millimeters using a millimeter ruler and calipers. So although I've set the calipers at 3.5, we want to double check that using the millimeter ruler. Close. Good. Okay. Here you go. So now with the calipers at the blue-white junction there and 3.5 millimeters, I'm going to put the 23 gauge MVR blade there. I'm actually going to stabilize the globe a little. My hand, you're going to feel a little pinch. And just aim towards the center of the globe and go back and forth a couple of times. And now we're ready to do the vitrectomy. Then I'm going to insert it. Wet the cornea, please. And this cataract's not so dense, I should be able to see the tip in the pupil here in a second. And there it is. Kind of see the shadow of it there. I could see it. If I focus down, you'll see it too. You see that shiny tip there? Okay. Make the globe soft. We're going to put a little solution here of adrenaline in the eye. So the pars plana sclerotomy opening was closed with a vicryl suture, and here I'm just trimming the sutures. So marginal pupillary expansion after the synechial lysis and drops and adrenaline. So now we're going to go and use the Beeler and stretch the pupil. Okay, now let's have the trypan. Now if I put in visco to enlarge the pupil, I won't be able to stain. So I'm going to stain first by putting in air. And then the trypan will come out. And then I'll get a little bit of trypan underneath the iris on each side. I'm actually not injecting it, I'm just allowing it to spread out. Now we'll put in the viscoat. And we'll see if our pupil is adequate for our needs. Just about so, huh? Okay. Now wet the cornea. So now we've got a deep chamber. Let's check out our zonule status as we now go in again with the Provisc and then make an opening in the center of the capsule. And now do the capsular axis. So in this case, I want the capsular axis to be just about as large as that pupil. So I'm just going to follow the internal margin of the pupil there. And then I'm going to put in capsule retractors. I can see some stria in the capsule. So I'm going to make 4 vertical incisions for the capsule retractors, opposite each other to begin with here, and then 2 more that'll also be opposite each other. So these are the 4 Chang capsule retractors that we're going to be using. And these are designed after and are an improvement upon the original Mackool cataract support system retractors. Their profile is narrower, and they're designed so that they won't capture a capsular tension ring, which we'll very likely use here after we complete the phaco and INA. And again, the principles in applying the capsule retractors, pretty straightforward. These are vertical incisions that lets the strut of the retractor be parallel to the capsule. And then we don't really retract the capsule. We just support it in position because it's the peripheral bulb, if you will, of the capsule retractor that provides the support. And it's that support to the capsular equator that really holds the capsule and enclosed lens in position. As I insert the 4th retractor, you can see that the necessity for the vertical incision sometimes makes the tip of the retractor contact the iris, and then just redirect it so that it now approaches the capsule properly, and you're done. Hydrodissection on one side, the nucleus will come forward, and then we push it back down, do the same thing on the other side. And we're going to do 360 degrees of viscodissection here. And there's 180. Let's do a little more over on this side from this primary incision. And then we'll do the subincisional area here. As soon as I find my side port, here it is. And then last, a little more OVD, that's visco, to expand the pupil a little bit. Now, these capsule retractors will not permit the pupil to get smaller than their location, and that should be big enough for us to do the phaco. Check infusion capacity, it's good. And wet the cornea. Okay, so I'm going to go stabilize the nucleus, choppers out over the equator. And wet the cornea again. Good. So we want to get a nice deep bowl here.
I'm not good sleep.
Now you're fine, Stephen. There's our first chop. Wet the cornea. Good. And there's another one. Quadrant removal. Just going to remove some OVD and cortex that's kind of obstructing my view a little bit. Wet the cornea again. Good. And another chop over here probably will be enough. We have low ocular rigidity, so let's take out a segment of nucleus here. And wet the cornea. Good. And just going to manipulate a segment anteriorly here. And see where I'm keeping the chopper posterior to the action at the phaco tip. So with the posterior capsule protected, you just move along here and remove the segments. And we got one more up here. Let's see if we can get that to come down. There's some epinucleus. So I'm just feathering the petal, just touching it ever so slightly, teasing that nucleus out of there. And I think the rest I can aspirate with the INA tip, so we'll go to that next. And I'm going to put a little more OVD in the corneal dome. Right there. Okay, INA. So in we go. Let's remove this epinucleus hanging around there and blocking our visibility. Now because the pupil is small, I have a Kugelin hook in my left hand, so I can just kind of push that iris out of the way and capture the cortex. Yeah, we'll do it over here. I think we can just get it. And I'm going to just retract that iris here. Good. And as soon as we finish this, we'll be putting in the capsular tension ring. And then wet the cornea, please. I think there's a little subincisional cortex there, so I'm going to rotate the globe toward me and tease that out like so. I have a spatula, please. Nice and still, Stephen. A spatula. And I want to protect the posterior capsule as I tease out this last area. So I'm going to press on it. And there we go. So you can see the posterior capsule's billowy. We know the zonular status is not its usual rigid self. Next step is insertion of the preloaded capsular tension ring. So I'm going to insert that. In this case, it won't matter what direction it goes in. If the zonule were clearly loose in one area compared to another, I would inject it in that area. Let me have a Kuglen or a Sinski. You can see that the retractor or the capsular tension ring got hung up right there, so I'm just going to move it into the capsular fornix. Okay, so now we're ready to insert the IOL. Now the axis here is 93 degrees. You can almost see where it is because 90 is pre-marked. So it's just a few degrees counterclockwise from the 90 marks in this right eye. So that's where I'll be putting the toric IOL. And I'm going to leave these capsule retractors in there during the insertion of the IOL and positioning of it. So using the spatula to stabilize the position of the globe, I'm going to inject this. This is a 28.5 diopter IOL, so it's has some resistance to injection, but not a lot. And the slow opening of the lens lets me position it into the capsular sac before it fully opens. And then I'm going to rotate it again before it fully opens. So we're close to, if not right at, that 93 degree axis. I'm going to sweep, wet the cornea please. So you can see the marks there. We got a ways to go, maybe 20 degrees before we get there. So I'm just kind of side to siding it. And now we're there. Okay. So typically you remove OVD from behind the IOL, right? I'm going to take a syringe with DSS and I'll irrigate a little bit behind it, but this isn't going to be your usual thorough get OVD out from behind toric IOL, because to do that we would have to possibly stress the zonule, and I don't want to do that. Okay. And with the capsular tension ring in there, the chances of this IOL rotating are reduced. Okay, so now we'll take out the retractors. So there are two ways to remove these retractors. One would be to pull them out through the incision through which they were inserted, and the other would be to pull them out through the primary incision. Now you can pull them out through the primary incision with a forceps, or you can use something like this old Grather collar button to just pull them right across the incision and out like so. It's a nice, effective way to remove capsule retractors. Now the two that are near the incision, they're a little tricky to pull around the corner and get them out. You could do it, but I typically don't do that. Normally I do what I'm going to do here, which is take the retractor, rotate it into the anterior chamber, pull it over to the incision, and then pull it out. So one more of those to go, and then we'll irrigate the anterior chamber and close the conjunctiva and be done. So here we go with this one. Okay, INA. And now we've removed the OVD from the anterior chamber. You can see the toric alignment is good. Spending just a little time blotting the IOL to get OVD out. Syringe with VSS. Well, there's our Flomax IFUS kind of iris presenting itself, just barely. So what I'm going to do is just reduce IOP like that, and then do the stromal hydration. And that conjunctival little incision there, I'm going to close that with cautery applications. Okay. So a little wet field cautery here. A little sting, Stephen. And we're done.